When the lights go out, when silence engulfs a city, or when an empty chair feels more occupied than ever, some stories refuse to remain just stories. Tonight, I bring you accounts that will challenge your perception of reality. They start as an ordinary Christmas tale, but end up in a realm where mystery and fear prevail.
It sounds like something straight out of a movie, but it really happened to me and Will in Greenhaven, a small town in the heart of Colorado. I don't know if you've heard of it, but the town is famous for its Christmas lights. Around this time of year, it transforms into a postcard-perfect winter wonderland. Will and I decided to spend our first Christmas as a married couple there. The idea was to do something special, maybe even create a tradition of our own before starting a family. We rented a simple little house on Airbnb. It was perfect. A wooden porch and an amazing view of the snow-covered hills. We arrived on December 22, and I was so excited to see the lights. Every house was decorated in a way that felt magical. The way the lights reflected off the snow was surreal, almost like a dream. But then Christmas Eve came, and things started to get strange. On the night of the 24th, the whole town was out in the streets. There was a parade, music, everyone celebrating together. It was almost 11 p.m. when Will and I decided to head back to the house. The cold was bone-chilling, so we took a shortcut down a quieter street. That's when everything went dark. All the lights just vanished. Not a single twinkle remained. The only sound was the wind. At first, I thought it was just a temporary blackout, something normal. But when we got back to the house, I realized even the heater had stopped working. The whole town seemed wrapped in this eerie, heavy silence. And on top of that, I started to feel that unsettling sensation. You know, like someone's watching you. Will figured it was just the cold or an issue with the power grid, but something didn't add up. The air itself felt different. The next morning, pale sunlight filtered through the window, and I woke up. Will was already in the kitchen, trying to heat up coffee on an old wood stove we found in the house. I went to the window, and what I saw froze me in place. Footprints in the snow, large bare footprints, coming from the street straight to our porch. There were no tracks leading away. It was as if someone had come up to the house and vanished. When I showed Will, he stayed quiet for a while, staring out the window. Then he said it was probably just someone lost, looking for shelter, and I shouldn't worry. But I couldn't shake it off. As the day went on, I noticed the same footprints around other nearby houses. Some led up to windows, others stopped at the backyards. The town, so full of life the night before, now seemed deserted, like everyone had just vanished. That night, we decided to stay inside. We locked every door, shut the curtains, and used only candles for light since the power was still out. That's when we heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, dragging footsteps, like someone walking heavily. Will grabbed a kitchen knife and headed for the door, even though my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. He opened it, but no one was there. Just the freezing wind and those same fresh footprints in the snow, exactly where I'd seen them that morning. As soon as we locked the door again, we heard a sound coming from the back of the house. It was as if someone was trying to force open a window. We froze, too terrified to check. That was the longest night of my life. The next day, the power came back on, and the town was in an uproar. We found out that at least 6 houses had been broken into during the night, but no one had seen or heard a thing. The only clue the police found were those same barefoot tracks in the snow, the ones that had appeared on our porch. We left for home the following day, and Greenhaven has never been the same for me. What was supposed to be a special Christmas tradition turned into a nightmare I never want to relive.
Nothing says holiday spirit like an entire city plunged into darkness, with barefoot footprints in the middle of the snow. Romantic, right? Yeah, until you realize that the someone who was watching Probably didn't even have a place to run to. Who needs electricity when you've got paranoia to keep you warm at night?
I need to get this off my chest. It's about something real that happened to me a couple of Christmases ago. I was working at a mall here in Portland, one of those places decked out with over-the-top decorations, lights everywhere, and a giant Christmas tree. I won't name the place to avoid complications, but I had a temporary job at the toy store just trying to save up some money before New Year's. Every day was the usual Christmas rush. The main attraction at the mall was Santa's throne, where kids would line up to take pictures. Parents were shelling out a fortune for photos with this sweet old guy who played the part as best as he could. But on December 22nd, things got weird. Really weird. When I got to work, I immediately felt like something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was this uneasy feeling in the air. Then I realized the regular Santa Jeff wasn't there. Instead, there was someone else. This guy had a real white beard. His suit was flawless, but there was something unsettling about him. Maybe it was the way he smiled at the kids. It was a strange smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and he barely blinked. I asked my manager who the new Santa was. He shrugged it off, saying the mall must have hired someone to fill in since Jeff probably had to take the day off. I tried to let it go, but all throughout my shift, I couldn't stop watching him. Kids were still getting their photos, but his behavior was unnerving. He barely spoke, just sat there, staring. Things took a turn when I overheard a mom talking angrily to another woman in front of the store. She was complaining that Santa wasn't interacting with the kids, that all he did was let out a half-hearted ho 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 and move on. Some kids were leaving in tears, while others seemed strangely quiet. A chill ran down my spine. On my break, I decided to walk over to the throne area. The line was much shorter than usual, and some kids seemed hesitant to approach. I saw a security guard go over to talk to Santa, and I thought, finally, they're going to ask him to leave. But to my surprise, the guard came back looking confused and went straight to the admin office. Later, a coworker told me that one of the kids had told their mom Santa whispered something in their ear. "I'll see you tonight." I froze. What kind of thing is that to say to a child? When my shift ended, I passed by the throne again to check if he was still there. By then, it was nearly 10 p.m., and the mall was almost empty. The throne was vacant, no sign of Santa. I figured they must have shut things down early since he wasn't exactly winning anyone over. When I got home, I couldn't shake the strange feeling. Something just didn't sit right. I decided to text Rita, who worked in mall administration, and asked her who the substitute Santa was. It took her a while to respond, and when she did, her message was hesitant. Rita explained that Jeff had requested December 22nd off for a dental appointment, and the mall had decided not to hire a replacement to save money. The plan was to leave the throne empty that day, but somehow someone showed up, took the seat, and started playing the role without anyone knowing who he was. She said security had gone to confront the man after receiving complaints from parents, but as soon as Santa realized they were coming for him, he got up and bolted. The guards tried to follow, but he vanished into the mall's corridors. The next day, the mall issued a public apology, claiming Santa had gotten sick from eating too many kids' candy to avoid alarming shoppers. But the truth was, no one had any idea who he was or what his intentions were. To this day, every time I hear a ho ho ho, it sends shivers down my spine. I don't know who that man was, but I'm certain he wasn't there to spread Christmas cheer.
So, let me get this straight. Some random guy with a beard that's a little too real sits on Santa's throne and starts whispering creepy things to kids? And nobody thought to, I don't know, call the cops before he vanished into thin air like some kind of holiday magic trick? Yeah, that's definitely the kind of thing that would turn me into the Grinch.
It happened about 5 years ago. I had decided to spend the holiday alone, with no family and tired of bouncing between friends' homes every Christmas. I wanted to do something special, so I planned a trip to Europe, specifically Austria. I'd always dreamed of experiencing Christmas in small villages with snow, decorations. It seemed magical. I found a cozy little house in Hallstatt, a picturesque village on Airbnb. It was perfect, warm, inviting, with a view view of the Alps, but also quite secluded. The idea of a peaceful and different kind of Christmas thrilled me. When I arrived, a sense of calm washed over me, but there was something off. The neighbors, an older couple, stared at me as I unloaded my bags from the car. I brushed it off, thinking it was just because I was a tourist. But it wasn't. On the evening of the 24th, as it grew dark, I began preparing a simple meal. It felt a bit melancholic spending Christmas alone, so far from everything familiar. Then I heard a knock at the door. It was the couple from next door. They seemed friendly, smiling warmly as they invited me to join them for Christmas dinner. They said it was too sad for me to spend the holiday by myself. At first, I hesitated, but Gerda's inviting smile and Christopher's shy kindness eventually convinced me. I thought it might be a unique chance to learn about Austrian Christmas traditions. I grabbed a bottle of wine I had bought for my own dinner and headed over to their house. The scene inside was straight out of a fairy tale: twinkling Christmas lights, a roaring fireplace, a table set beautifully. It was perfect. Almost too perfect. Right away, something felt off. They insisted I drink the wine I brought before we even sat down to eat. Gerda's smile was overly friendly, while Christopher watched me with an intense, unsettling gaze. My stomach churned, though I told myself it was just the wine on an empty stomach. The food was incredible: hot soup, roasted meat, elaborate desserts. After we finished my wine, they opened another bottle. That's when I started to feel strange. My body grew heavy, my head spun, and my vision blurred. I tried to play it cool, but it was clear something was wrong. As they chatted and laughed, I began to notice disturbing details. Questions they had asked earlier suddenly took on a darker meaning. Whether I had family or friends with me, if I was traveling alone, the exact date of my return. And there was a faint metallic smell in the air, something that didn't come from the food. Then Gerda said something that made my blood run cold. "You're perfect, you know? We don't often get such special guests." Her smile shifted. It wasn't warm anymore, it was predatory. I knew I had to get out of there. I pretended not to notice anything, thanking them for the lovely evening. As I stood up, my legs almost gave out, but Christopher quickly caught me, saying I must have had too much to drink. He tried to guide me back to the couch. Just then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A friend was calling to wish me a Merry Christmas. I excused myself to take the call and went to the bathroom. Once inside, I locked the door and answered, tears streaming down my face. I quickly explained what was happening. My friend panicked and said she would try to contact the local police. As I stood there, trying to think of my next move, I heard Gerda and Christopher talking outside the bathroom door. They were discussing my delay and something about not waiting much longer. Without thinking, I quietly opened the bathroom window and climbed out. The freezing air hit me like a slap, but I started running. I stumbled in the snow, my heart racing, but I finally made it back to the Airbnb. I grabbed my bag and drove straight to a hotel in the village center. At the hotel, the receptionist thought I was drunk or high, but helped me to a room. I barely remember collapsing into bed. When I woke up the next morning, it felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My phone was filled with missed calls from my friend. I called her back, and she answered in tears, thinking something terrible had happened to me. I returned to the Airbnb to collect my belongings and found the police there. My friend had alerted them, and they had gone to the couple's house to investigate, but no one answered the door. The officers asked me to come to the station the next day to file a formal report and allow an investigation to proceed. But you know what? I didn't go. I was in a foreign country, didn't speak the language, and just wanted to leave. I packed my things and flew back to the US the same day. To this day, I don't know what would have happened if I had stayed. I don't know if it was the alcohol, a moment of paranoia, or something much darker. But I wasn't willing to find out.
Traveling alone to the middle of nowhere for Christmas is already a questionable idea, but agreeing to have dinner with creepy neighbors who have that friendly psychopath smile? Oh, brilliant move. Let me guess. The dessert was their local specialty, missing tourists. And look at that, she even managed to escape through the window. A Christmas hero or just ridiculously lucky? My vote's on luck.
I don't know if what happened to me on Christmas of 2015 was just a coincidence or something more. I'll tell you the story, and you can draw your own conclusions. It was our family's first Christmas without my grandfather. He had passed away in January that year, not long after the 2014 holidays. It hit all of us hard. He was the heart of our gatherings, you know? Always sitting at the head of the table with that calm, knowing smile that made everything feel okay. The head of the table was his spot. Always had been. I knew it would be hard to get through Christmas without him. My mom was determined to keep our traditions alive, though. We decorated the house, put up the tree, hung the lights, everything just like always. But deep down, we all knew it wouldn't be the same. When Christmas Eve dinner arrived, the table was full as always. Turkey, rabanadas, wine, all the things he loved. But there was something in the air, something we couldn't quite name. His chair at the head of the table stayed empty. No one sat there. I asked my mom why, and she just shrugged, saying it didn't feel right. I think it was an unspoken collective decision. A silent mourning, a gesture of respect. As we ate, I couldn't stop glancing at that empty chair. I can't explain it. It was like it wasn't truly empty. Not physically, but it felt occupied. Every time my eyes drifted to it, I got a chill. After dinner, we moved to the living room. My grandfather always used to sit in a specific corner of the couch, right by the window, and again, no one sat there. All night, that spot stayed untouched, as though it had been reserved. Then something strange happened. During dessert, my aunt accidentally dropped a plate of pie on the floor. When she bent down to pick it up, she said it felt like someone had bumped into her. Everyone laughed it off, but I couldn't. Her comment unsettled me. It didn't make sense. The strangest moment of the night came when my youngest cousin, too little to fully understand what was going on, looked at the empty chair and asked if Grandpa wasn't going to eat. The room fell silent, heavy. My mom, visibly uncomfortable, quickly changed the subject, but that question froze me in place. A few days later, my mom sent the family photos from Christmas. She's always loved taking pictures, so there were plenty. Shots of the table, of us eating, laughing. But something about them was off. In every photo, my grandfather's chair was empty, as expected since no one sat there. But when I looked closer, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. A shadow. At the height of a seated person. It was faint, barely there, but unmistakable. The pictures from the living room were just as eerie. The corner of the couch where he always sat was empty, but the cushions had a slight indentation, as though someone had just gotten up. I stared at those photos for a long time. I didn't say anything to my mom. She was emotional enough as it was. But the entire night replayed in my mind. The nervous laughter, the odd comments, the way no one even considered sitting in his places. It all started to add up. I'll never know if it was just coincidence or something more. But to me, it felt like my grandfather didn't want to miss out. Somehow, he was there, laughing with us, sitting in his spot. Maybe it was just all of us keeping his memory alive that night. Or maybe he really was there. Either way, that Christmas was the most unsettling yet special one I've ever experienced, and it never happened again.
Nothing like a good family story to warm the heart, except this one comes with ghostly shadows and cushions that feel like Grandpa. You know what's scarier? The fact that no one questions how obvious it all is. Everyone pretends it's nostalgia, but if it were me, I'd already be taking that chair apart to make sure it doesn't start walking around on its own. Today's stories remind us that Christmas, while a time of celebration and magic, can also hold its own dark secrets. If you enjoyed these tales, leave a comment and share them with someone you think would love a little chill this holiday season. And remember, the next story could be yours. Send your account to tunetofearogmail.com and let us know your tale.